He also talks about how what that means is that there is only a 4% difference between humans and chimps. And if there's 3 billion nucleotides, or 3 billion bases in the human genome, that means that there's about 120 million nucleotides that are different between humans and chimps. He also mentions the fact that humans have 23 chromosomes and chimps have 24 chromosomes, and I found it kind of interesting in how he says here where men and monkeys also have another fundamental difference. Humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes while chimps have 24, so the DNA isn't as similar as you've been led to believe. Now, those of you who are veterans of the whole evolution versus creationism debate, you'll probably realize right away what the explanation for this difference is, which is basically the fact that human chromosome 2 is basically a fusion between 2 chimp chromosomes. And there's actually a really good YouTube video out there. I think it was just a recorded lecture by Kenneth Miller where he talks about this sort of thing. It's one of the best videos that I've seen on YouTube that explains this very well. I'll put a link to that so you can watch that. But I'm surprised that Ray Comfort didn't see that video himself, and yet he is still making this argument. It just tells me that he doesn't understand why that difference is there, why there's that difference. He then goes on to make the classic comparison between living organisms and non-living designed objects. He also mentions something that kind of has something to do with something I talked about in one of my previous videos, to do with I guess just the public layman when they hear things about how different organisms have the same genes, they share the same genes, and this is kind of a prime example of what I was referring to. I'll just kind of read this one passage from what he wrote, which I think kind of highlights what he's trying to say quite well, and also just what I was talking about, people misunderstanding. An architect typically uses the same building materials for numerous buildings, and a car manufacturer commonly uses the same parts in various models. So I guess that's usually what people think of when they think of the same genes, where it equates the same way as in the screws used in the manufacture of cars, where you have a car manufacturer might use the same screws in all of its cars. So it's the same parts that are shared amongst all the different cars that they make. This isn't really a good comparison. It's not a correct analogy, mainly because the parts or the gene products of organisms, the proteins, they are made slightly different. I mean, we're not talking about the genes being comparable to the screws in a car. We're talking about the protein products themselves are comparable to the screws, right? They are the physical thing that does what it needs to do in the cell or in the car, to do it when I'm talking about the screw, where it's the DNA that just codes for the information for just making that protein. So the better comparison would be the blueprints for making that screw, the instructions for making that screw. That would be a better analogy. I mean, it's still lacking, but it's way better than this analogy of how it's like the same parts in a non-living object. He closes the section on DNA similarities with the following statement, which I think is rather ironic. Be careful you don't fall for the illogic of this evolutionary proof, or scientists will not only make a monkey out of you, they'll make a banana out of you. Right, so the next section is on transitional forms. I'm not going to talk about it as much. Kind of went over the part that was just of more interest to me, DNA and that sort of thing, for obvious reasons. So I'll just kind of breeze over the rest of it here. When he talks about transitional fossils, he talks about a lot of the fossil hoaxes, Piltdown Man and that sort of thing, and also a lot of the other fossils that I guess he figures that might be legitimate, that they're either just modern animals or they're just modern individuals with disease, like Neanderthal is a person with a human with arthritis. I mean, again, you guys, if those of you who've kept up with a lot of these conversations, this is nothing new. I mean, that's why I just want to breeze over this, because a lot of it's just the same arguments. Again, a lot of quote mining Darwin, and Stephen J. Gould. Next, he talks about the missing links. He also talks about the new Ida fossil that was discovered a while ago. This is a topic that was discussed a lot in the GEERUP and AronRa videos. He mentions Sir David Attenborough's comment, his quote of how the missing link is no longer missing. That should be no surprise how they would pick on that. We're probably going to see that quote mine for a while now. What else? The next section is on difficult questions, where he first talks about how the fact that fish have 2-chambered hearts, reptiles have 3-chambered hearts, with the exception of crocodiles have 4-chambered heart. Birds and mammals have a 4-chambered heart as well. And then he goes on page 23, where he just kind of has this bombardment of questions, where just every single sentence is a question. And it basically comes down to where he's talking about how if the heart evolved and it's used to pump blood through the circulatory system, what evolved first, the circulatory system and the blood, or the heart? Which evolved first? So the kind of he quotes somebody where they kind of refer to this problem as a chicken and egg problem. And also, lo and behold, he talks about the human eye and the irreducible complexity of the eye. He says that the human eye is a perfect example of irreducible complexity. Yeah, we've heard that one before. And that is just, there's no way that this could have come about by just mere blind chance. There's that gem again. And also,